Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 1, beginning with text 23. I'll chant that one myself, actually, because it has no purport, and then we'll chant 24 together. Tat pradurbhava samyoga vidyotita manamuni utishtan ekapadena dadarsha vibudharshavan. Translation. The sage was standing on one leg, but as soon as he saw that the 3 deities had appeared before him, he was so pleased to see them all together that despite great difficulty he approached them on one leg. Okay, and we could do 24 together. Pranamya Dandavat Bhumav Upatashte Rananjali Vrisha Hamsa Suparna Stan Svai Svais Chinais Cha Chinitan Pranamya Dandavat Bhumav Pranamya Dandavat Bhumav Upatashte Rajanjali Upatashte Rajanjali Vrishahamsa Suparna Shtan Vrishahamsa Suparna Shtan Svai Svais Chinais Chachinitan Svai Svais Chinais Chachinitam Pranamya Dandavat Bhumav Upatashte Rajanjali Vrishahamsa Suparna Shtan Svai Svais Chinais Chachinitam. Vaishnavis. Pranamya. Okay, give it a go. Go ahead. Anybody else? Pranamya dandavat bhumam upataste rajanjali sahamsa suparnashtam Pranamya, offering obeisances. Dandavat, like a rod. Bhumau, ground. Upatashte, fell down. Arhana, all paraphernalia for worship. Anjali, folded hands. Vrisha, bull. Hamsa, swan. Suparna, the Garuda bird. Shtan, situated. Shvai, own. Shvai, own. Chinai, by symbols. Cha, end. Chinitan, being recognized. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thereafter, he began to offer prayers to the three deities who were seated on different carriers, a bull, a swan, and Garuda, and who held in their hands a drum, kusha grass, and a discus. The sage offered his respects by falling down like a stick. Purport. Danda means a long rod, and vat means like. Before a superior, one has to fall down on the ground just like a stick, and this sort of offering of respect is called dandavat. Atri Rishi offered his respect to the three deities in that way. They were identified by their different carriers and different symbolic representations. In that connection, it is stated here that Lord Viṣṇu was sitting on Garuda, a big aquiline bird, and was carrying in his hand a disc. Brahmā was sitting on a swan and had his hand on kusa grass. And Lord Shiva was sitting on a bull and carrying in his hand a small drum called damaru. Atri Rishi recognized them by their symbolic representations and different carriers, and thus he offered them prayers and respects. Om Gyanatimadam Dashajananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamupagadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. So here we have Atri Muni, and he's been standing on one leg for 100 years. It doesn't say with 100 years of the demigods, but anyway, any 100 years. That's a long time to be standing on one leg. Ekapada vrata, ekapada tapa it's called. It's a very heroic sort of a tapasya. It's a meditation pose, but very, very difficult. I mean, in contrast to that, Kardama Muni, he was meditating, but he was sitting in the, like a lotus position for, 10,000 years, 100 times more. So this is like it's like a difference between a sprint and a marathon. This is like a high intensity position. It's very difficult to stand on one leg even for 100 seconds, right? Have you tried it? It's not. Most people can't do it. What to speak of 100 years? So, he's in this performing this very intense tapasya for the purpose of, he wants a son like the Supreme Lord, basically. That's what he's desiring. And his wife, while he's doing all that, I don't know what she was doing, it doesn't mention, but she was there with him on Asuya, and he's doing this tapasya. So now finally what's happened is, after 100 years, the three deities have appeared before him. And Brahmā, Viṣṇu, Śiva, like that, yeah. And so he's very happy. He sees them and he's in ecstasy. And it's mentioned that he was staring, as soon as he saw the three deities had appeared before him, he was so pleased to see them together that despite great difficulty, he approached them on one leg. So I guess he was hopping. He hopped towards them. And then when he got close enough, he paid dandavats. Okay? So, the question that arose in my mind, and it's been touched upon in some of the previous classes, is how is it that this personality, Atri Muni, didn't know who the Supreme Lord was? He didn't pray for Viṣṇu per se. He just prayed the Supreme Lord. I want to have this, a son like the Supreme Lord. Because Atri Muni, we can understand that he's no ordinary person. Just from the fact that he could stand on one leg for 100 years, that's pretty amazing. But aside from that, to give you a little bit of a background information on Atri Muni. Atri Muni is one of the Manasaputras. The Manasaputras are mentally generated sons of Lord Brahma. The others are Marichi, Angira, Pulasya, Pulaha, Kratu, Vishishta. Sometimes Bhrigu is mentioned in that group. That would make it they call it the Saptarishis, but if you include Bhrigu, it's kind of like the Astic Rishis, because he makes number 8. But anyway, he's in a very exclusive group of personalities there. They were the second group of mentally generated sons created by Lord Brahma. The first were the 4 Kumaras. Okay? And even among them, he was distinguished because he was in the Rig Veda. The 5th book of the Rig Veda is called the Atri Mandala in his honor. So he was very prolific. He produced many, Vedic verses like that. It's stated in the Ramayana that him and his wife were visited by Ram, Sita, and Lakshman in their hermitage in the Himalaya mountains. So, he was like no ordinary person. He was a very special personality. So how was it, that he didn't understand that Viṣṇu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? It's a little strange, isn't it? Yeah? No, it's not. It's not that strange, because in the Krishna book, in the 89th chapter, it's entitled The Super Excellent Pastimes, the Super Excellent Qualities, Super Excellence of Krishna. And it's described, that the chapter begins with describing how there was long ago, it goes long ago, these great sages were assembled on the banks of the Saraswati River to perform a sacrifice called Satra, right? And the purpose of that sacrifice was to find out, to try to distinguish or ascertain, that's the word I'm looking for, ascertain who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Implying that, and Prabhupada says this in that chapter, they referred to as Brahmavadina. They didn't really know. They weren't sure. Everybody probably, if you read the Krishna book, you know the story. They appointed Bhrigu Muni, and Bhrigu Muni was meant to go to the different personalities, and they established a test, a criterion for how they would ascertain who is the Supreme Person. So Bhrigu Muni first went to Lord Brahma, who was his father, and when he approached Lord Brahma, he didn't say anything, which is, you can say, well, okay, but that's not appropriate. And in Vedic culture, when the son is approaching the father, especially an exalted father like Lord Brahma, he's supposed to offer prayers. He was supposed to offer some words in glorification. He didn't say anything. So Lord Brahma was very angry, and he actually was thinking to punish him. But it's described that he used his intelligence to control his passion, his anger, like that. So that was that. Bhrigu Muni kind of made note of that, and then he moved on to went to visit Lord Śiva in his abode in Kailash. And when he went to see Lord Shiva's his brother. So when he went to visit Lord Śiva, Lord Śiva was very happy to see him. And he stood up and he was going to embrace his brother, Bhrigu Muni. And Bhrigu Muni said, this time we spoke, and he said, no, don't touch me, please. You're not clean. You're hanging out in crematoriums. You got all these ashes all over you, and you associate with all these mode of ignorance. No, please don't. So Lord Śiva was really offended by that, because here he affectionately he was going to embrace his brother, and his brother insults him like that horribly, and so he grabbed his trident and he was going to kill him, right? And fortunately for Bhrigu Muni, his wife was there, Parvati was there, and she saw what was going on, and she thought, no. So she fell at Lord Shiva's feet. She did dandavats to Lord Shiva, and she begged him, no, don't do it, just chill out, And she was able to calm him down, and so then Bhrigu Muni made note of that whole incident, and then he moved on to visit Lord Viṣṇu in the Vaikuntha planet that's Svetadvip here in the material world. So when he went to see Lord Viṣṇu was lying on a bed of flowers, and his Lakshmi was massaging his feet, and he was welcomed in. He's a Brahmin. Brahmins are very highly respected by Lord Viṣṇu and everywhere. So when he got into the presence of Lord Viṣṇu, he kicked him on the chest. And it's like, that's, he escalated a degree of offensiveness with each personality. Just, with Lord Brahma, okay, he didn't offer prayers, that was offensive. And then when he met Lord Śiva, he insulted him, that was more offensive. But what he did with Lord Viṣṇu, that was like the most offensive you could possibly get. Corporal, right? Superlatively offensive. And Lakshmi was like, she wasn't very happy about the whole thing. It's said that the Brahmins are poor to this day because they don't get the favor of the goddess of fortune because of what Bhrigu did like that. But anyway, he kicked Lord Viṣṇu on the chest, and Lord Viṣṇu was, please excuse me that I didn't, properly greet you when you came, and I hope you didn't. And he starts massaging the foot of Bhrigu Muni. He says, I hope you didn't hurt your foot on my chest, which is hard like a thunderbolt. And how can I serve you? And Bhrigu Muni was just kind of like flabbergasted. He didn't know what to say. He was like, and it's described that tears were he was overwhelmed by the quality of Lord Viṣṇu, how much respect he had for Brahmins, and just how he couldn't believe that. His response was just like, wow. So anyway, it's stated in the Krishna book that the test of one's greatness ultimately is measured by how tolerant one is. So of course, Lord Viṣṇu, according to that criterion, they could understand at that point that, Lord Viṣṇu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is that pastime. How did I get onto that? Oh yeah, so it's not unusual that these personalities, even these great sages, might not know at some point who the the four Kumaras. They didn't become devotees until they visited the Vaikuntha planet, and they actually that whole incident with Jaya and Vijaya, and then at some point Lord Viṣṇu appeared, Lord Narayan appeared on the scene, and when they smelt the fragrance of the tulasi leaves coming from his feet, then that's when they actually became full-on devotees. It's interesting that it's not like they didn't know who Lord Narayan was, but they just for some felt they were more inclined to the impersonal understanding. But they still they were visiting Vaikuntha anyway, but they became full-on devotees at that point. So yeah, it's not unusual. And in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, text 3, Krishna says, Namevidu Suragana Prabhavam Na Maharshaya, that even the great sages and demigods, they don't know my origin or my personality. So it's par for the course. It's not just anybody and everybody gets to know who Lord Krishna is, or who the Supreme Personality of Godhead is. And it's kind of understandable. I mean, I've heard Prabhupada say in lectures that everybody who's here in this material world is more or less sinful. More or less. So it's just like, to give an analogy, just say there's a superintendent of a prison. So when the prisoners come in, there are all different types of prisoners, and he'll give them all different jobs to do. They'll have their different places where they stay, their cells, and they'll have their jobs that they have to do during the day. But they get that much information. He doesn't tell them everything. It's not like the superintendent has to sit down with each one of them and fill them in. This is how the whole prison system works, and this is no, just that. So it's the same thing. Despite the fact that Atri Muni or Atri Rishi was the son of Lord Brahmā, maybe he wasn't privy to that information. Certainly Lord Brahmā knew. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. That's right, in the Brahma Samhita. And it's stated in that book, I don't know if it's published by, initially it was published by Gaudiya Math, and I think we publish it now, the Brahma Samhita. It says on the back cover, at the dawn of creation. So in other words, it's not like Lord Brahmā understood that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead further down the line, right? From the beginning. Lord Brahmā understood Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in the Bhagavatam too, in the second canto, before all the creation stuff starts going on, Brahma has already had that interaction with Krishna, Viṣṇu, Lord Narayan, and he's kind of enlightened. He knows. So yeah, but Atri Muni, or it's possible also. It's possible that, like the four Kumaras, he had the information, but that it just didn't sink in. And anyway, that we can't be shocked by that. That's kind of it is par for the course. The way to understand Krishna's not. One lesson from this is that it's not just because somebody's very austere or very even knowledgeable that they're necessarily going to be able to understand the personality of Krishna. Personalities of Krishna is understood by somebody who becomes a pure devotee, and Krishna reveals himself. There's that verse in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Atapi te deva padambuja dvaya prasada leshan nugrahita evahi janati tattvam bhagavan mahimno nachanya ekopi chidam vichinvan. That only a devotee who gets a little bit of mercy, leshanu grihita, just a tiny drop of mercy, that person can understand Krishna, others not. Despite the fact that they might be incredibly learned, incredibly austere, like Atri Muni here. He was, as I mentioned, he had one of the books in the Rig Vedas is named after him in his honor, the Atri Mandala. So he's obviously very learned, he's obviously very austere, but not understanding at that point. So that's that. And then the other thing is, why is it that Krishna chose to appear before him as three personalities? Because, might seem a little strange because, generally we're learning that, well, here, I'm going to have to jump ahead a little bit to answer that question. So, Prabhupada explains that, I won't read anything, I don't want to spoil it for the upcoming classes, but there's nothing incorrect. In other words, generally our understanding is that, well, Viṣṇu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Lord Shiva is a guna avatar, Lord Brahmā is a guna avatar. But Prabhupada, as we're going to hear in verses coming up, that there is a sense in which, actually in one purport, Prabhupada makes the point, just like Mahavishnu can be considered the Supreme Lord because all the universes emanate from him. And there's a sense in which Garbhodakṣaya Viṣṇu can be considered the Supreme Lord because Lord Brahmā, was born from the lotus that grew out from his navel. And there's a sense in which Kshirodakṣaya Viṣṇu can be considered the Supreme Lord because, he's the super soul within every living entity. And then he goes on in that same purport to explain, so in the same way, there's a sense in which Lord Brahmā could be considered the Supreme Lord because he, creates all the planets in the universe. And there's a sense in which Lord Viṣṇu can be considered the Supreme Lord. So he, because he maintains them all. And there's a sense in which Lord Shiva can be considered the Supreme Lord because he destroys everything. So, there's a sense in which, it is correct to understand that all three of these personalities could be, the Supreme Lord. And so it's a pastime. It's a pastime. Krishna just decided to do it like this, in this situation. And, we can't, it's not proper for a devotee to think, well, that's not right. No. It's just like somebody thinking, well, Shakespeare, why did he do in his play no? Shakespeare is considered the greatest playwright, supposedly in material world, okay? And but so somebody who's never written a play, who maybe even has anybody here ever written a play? No. So if you've never written a play, you're not in a position to say, oh, Shakespeare, he should have done like this in that play. The plot should have been like this. No. You have to be, if you're going to be a judge about something, you should be an expert, right? Just like in the Olympics, they have all these different events. There's, figure skating or gymnastics or diving or riding horses. They have judges that evaluate the performance. And these judges, they don't just get asked for volunteers from the audience. Oh, anybody here want to be a judge for the, gymnastics? No. They pick experts. Right? These are people who are experts, 3 of them or 7 of them or whatever. Their whole life is gymnastics, for instance. They were gymnasts themselves, they were coaches or both. They know it like they live, breathe, and everything gymnastics. So they're qualified to be the judges. So in the same way, how many universes have any of us created? I mean, we're not qualified. Krishna knows what he's doing, and whatever he chose to do it this way in this particular situation, and it's perfect. Bhaktisiddhanta in the Brahma Samhita, in one of the purports, he referred to Krishna as the transcendental autocrat. Transcendental autocrat, which means that he's good to do whatever he wants, and he's infallible. He's not like AI. I use this program Gemini. It's Google's version of AI, and right at the bottom of the thing it says, caution, AI makes mistakes, right? So it's as brilliant as it sometimes, appears to be, but Krishna doesn't make mistakes. Krishna, whatever. If it's perfect. And now my understanding, this is my explanation of why this in this situation. Well, okay, so Atri Muni, it was mentioned in a couple of purports back that because he prayed for a son like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it's understood that he's not a pure devotee, because if he was a pure devotee, he would have prayed for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be his son. That would have, Prabhupada says in the purport, that would have been pure devotion. So, but that doesn't mean he's not a devotee at all, right? Okay, he's not a pure devotee, he prayed like that, but he's a devotee. I mean, he's a devotee. Obviously, why would he be praying to have a son like the Supreme Lord if he, if he wasn't a devotee at all? He's obviously got great respect, admiration, etc., for the Supreme Lord, that he's wanting a son like him. So he's a devotee, he's a sakama devotee. We've heard that before, right? The demigods are sakama devotees, and these great rishis, some of them, not all of them, are sakama devotees. So here he is, he's a sakama devotee, and he's praying to the Supreme Lord in a particular way, and Krishna's reciprocating. He's reciprocating. Krishna could understand what his, as super soul, could understand what his mentality is, and he's reciprocating in the way that's appropriate for his devotion, for his sakama devotion. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says in the 7th chapter that 4 kinds of men approach me: the distressed, the ones who want wealth, the ones who are inquisitive and want knowledge of the absolute truth. And they're not pure devotees, they're not considered pure devotees. But a couple verses after that, Krishna says, Udada sarva evaiti, that all these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls. And it's not like Krishna doesn't appreciate the fact that they're devotees and doesn't have affection for them. He does. And so that's my explanation of how it is that Krishna appeared as 3 personalities as opposed to 1. He was reciprocating with the mood, with the position of Atri Muni. As I said, it's a pastime, and it's perfect. Krishna, unlike Shakespeare, who maybe could have improved his plays, or Gemini that does make mistakes. Krishna does everything perfectly. He's a transcendental autocrat, and that's my understanding of how it is that the deities appeared as Krishna appeared as 3 personalities as opposed to 1, like that. So I'll stop there. Does anybody have any question or comment? Oh, Sachinoy, hand went up first. Okay. Question?
Yes. Hare Krishna. What's the relation of Shiva, Brahma, and Viṣṇu with the modes of material nature?
Well, Lord Viṣṇu is in charge of the mode of goodness, right? Lord Brahma is in charge of the mode of passion, and Lord Shiva is in charge of the mode of ignorance, basically.
Okay, so kind of follow-up question.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like practically, if we see someone like in the mode of ignorance, someone in the mode of goodness, does that mean like one in the mode of ignorance, that's like the work of Shiva? Like how is that? How can we understand that?
Not the work. Well, they control those modes of material nature, So, a person by their activities puts themselves under the control of a particular mode of material nature. Those human beings are supposed to behave in a certain way, and if you don't follow religious principles, then you're interacting, you're contacting a particular mode of material nature when you deviate from proper dharma, and then that mode of material nature is administrated or controlled by that particular personality. Yeah. That make sense, or that help it at all? Okay.
Helps to understand. Thank you.
Sachi?
It's just a reflection. At the beginning of your class, you were mentioning that how is it possible that someone like Atri wouldn't know who the personality of Godhead is? And also in the Krishna book, when the Rajasuya sacrifice was going to be performed, and King Yudhishthira wanted to happen, and it's mentioned that it's not because he wanted to be like famous, he actually wanted that,
that was his reason,
the Supreme Personality of Godhead be known. I mean, Krishna in earth is going to be there, and he invited all the great sages of the universe to come. So, and then we know the whole story, how he was selected to be like recognized as
that's a good point, I guess, because if everybody understood that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that would have been no need for him to do that. But it is stated in the Krishna book that was his reason for wanting to perform that ceremony, correct?
Yeah, and Srila Prabhupada also mentioned many times that only a few people knew who Krishna was actually, like the Pandavas. Bhishma knew, and the Pandavas knew, but many of them they didn't know. So, and same as the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Chana avatar, the cover incarnation, maybe tiny few pure devotees knew. And for that also we find quotes from the scriptures in which only those pure devotees, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. And on the other side, he holds Naham Prakasa Sarvashyo Yogamaya Samamrita. He covers himself with the curtain, the luring energy for some foolish people or someone.
Yeah. So responding to your comment, just our position is so fortunate because most people, even when they get to the human form of life, they don't get even information that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what to speak of the process for actually understanding that, realizing that. It's one thing to have, information, it's another thing to actually realize it. They get neither. The vast majority of human beings don't know, or what to speak of, have the process. Whereas we both know, we've been given the information, and we've been given the process. So we're in such a fortunate position, so I guess we should try to take full advantage of that. And this is, of course, this month of Damodar is a special opportunity because, whatever you do during the month of Damodar, the benefits are multiplied. Yeah, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I just had a question about the mind-born sons of Lord Brahma. You said the first set were the 4 Kumaras, and then the Saptarishis were the second set. And I was wondering, what about Narada Muni? He's a mind-born son.
You're right. He is one. He's one.
Where does he fit in?
Chronologically, I couldn't find that. I tried researching that last night, but I couldn't kind of pinpoint it. But he's one of the Manasaputras. He's a mentally generated son of Lord Brahma. You're correct. Also, Chitragupta was mentioned someplace that I researched, but different category slightly. But yeah, Narada Muni is definitely one of them. Anybody else? Anything? Okay, thank you very much. Gandharvas Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.